Good afternoon, everyone.
I'm Reina May Aikwaton, your reporter for today's video.
For today's afternoon, we will discuss about the information processing theory.
First, we will tackle about the nature of information processing. So, information processing developed by the psychologist George A. Miller. According to him, information processing theory or IPT of cognitive development pertains to the study and analysis of what occurs in a person's mind as he or she receive a byte information. So, information processing, it talks about the human mind or brain and how it react or think when an information received. Other theories enhance Miller's theory, although the different theories that followed share common assumptions. So first, information processing occurs in stages that intervene between receiving a stimulus and producing a response. The form of information or how it is represented mentally differs depending on the stage. The stages are qualitatively different from one another. So, this theory depends on stages, on how to receive information or a stimulus, and also on how to respond to the given information. Second, information processing is analogous or similar to computer processing. The mind receives and represents, encodes the stimulus from the environment, processes the information, stores it, locates or retrieves in the knowledge that has been stored by the memory. So this theory said that information processing is similar to computer processing. The mind receives information from the environment through our stimulus or our senses, like what we heard, what we see, what we smell, what we taste, or what we touch, and process the information, stores it, locates, or retrieves it. Let's move on to the basic components of the IPT model. So, information processing theory model has three major components, namely sensory memory, short-term memory, and lastly, long-term memory. The sensory memory is the state in which the stimuli sense, heard, scent, touch, smelled, tasted are temporarily held in milliseconds for information to be used, processed further. As person is presented a lot of stimuli at a given time, the sensory memory serves as a filter on what to focus on. Sensory memory from the word sensory, which refers to our senses, what we heard, what we see, what we smelled, what we touched, what we tasted. Through these senses, it carries the information to our brain, then our brain processes the information, and also sensory memory serves as a filter on what to focus. For example, when viewing a basketball game, you can see one person focus on the one in possession of the ball, while another one's attention is centered on the guard's action. Selective attention is the individual's ability to choose and process information while disregarding the other stimuli or information. So according to Shank, 2012, cited several factors that influence attention. Number one, the meaning is given by the individual to the task or information. Number two, the similarity between competing tasks or source of information. Number three, the difficulty or complexity of the task as influenced by prior knowledge. And lastly, number four, the ability to control and sustain attention. Information held in sensory memory is for about 3 seconds only. Unattended stimuli are forgotten. The information the person give attention to is transferred to the short-term memory. Let's proceed to the short-term memory. Short-term memory serves as a temporary memory, while the information is given further processing before it is transferred to long-term memory. Information in this stage is 15 to 20 seconds only and can hold from 5 to 9 bytes of information only at a given time before the information is transferred to the long-term memory. There are two strategies involved: the rehearsal and encoding or elaboration. First, I will discuss about the maintenance rehearsal. It involves repetition of the information to sustain its maintenance in the short-term memory. So, for example, the use of EBC songs and number songs. So, these songs serves as rehearsal strategies among the children for them to remember it. Elaborative rehearsal is the process of relating the new information to what is already known and stored in the long-term memory to make the new information more significant. So, it is the process that your prior knowledge connect to the new information and stored it in the long-term memory to make the new information more significant. Organization, the process of classifying and grouping bytes of information into organized chunks. So, it is the process of organizing the information through classifying and grouping. So, for example, uh, classifying and grouping the numbers and letters. Arranging information into hierarchies. Example, flora, which refers to the plants, and fauna refers to the animals, are grouped into phyla or divisions, classes, orders, families, genera, and species. The use of mnemonic devices. Elaborate information in different ways. Example, right beef. It is an acronym, which the R stands for red, O stands for orange, Y stands for yellow, G stands for green, B stands for blue, I stands for indigo, and V stands for violet. Imagery is a strategy that involves the memory taking what is to be learned and creating meaningful auditory or kinesthetic images of information. So, by the way, kinesthetic imagery is the movement of a of person or object. Example, running fingers on soft fabric. So let's proceed to long-term memory. Long-term memory is the storehouse of information transferred from short-term memory. It has unlimited space. Varied contents of information are stored, namely, number one, semantic memory, number two, episodic memory, number three, procedural memory, and lastly, number four, imagery. So, semantic memory is the memory for ideas, words, facts, and concepts that are not part of the person's own experience. So, this memory, it is all about our ideas, the words, the facts, and concepts that are not parts of our own experiences. Individuals with good semantic memory includes those who know the capitals of the countries in the world, many words and their meanings, order of planets, and other facts. Episodic memory includes the memory of events that happened in a person's life, connected to a specific time and place. For example, a student who can explain the details of his or her most embarrassing moment, who were involved when, where, why, and how it happened. Procedural memory accounts for the knowledge about how to do things. For example, a student teacher who recalls the step-by-step process of presenting the lesson to the class. So, imagery refers to mental images of what is known. So, for example, beginning readers use configuration clause, shape, and appearance of words to help in word recognition. So, let's proceed to the retrieving of information from long-term memory. Retrieving information from long-term memory involves locating the information and transferring it at the short-term memory to use for a purpose. Studies have shown that a person remembers a lot less of the information stored in long-term memory. The quality of the information was stored influences its access and retrieval. Retrieval of information from the long-term memory entails bringing to mind the previously acquired information to understand some new input or to make a response. So there are two ways of information retrieval. The number one is the recalling and number two is recognition. We will tackle about recalling, which is either free recall or cued recall. Free recall, the person has to relay an information previously learned purely by memory. So the person relaying on his or her information previously learned through his or her knowledge, stock knowledge or prior knowledge. So while cued recall involves the provisions of cues and clause to the person to help in the recall of the information. So cued recall, the person use kanang clause for him or her to remember the information. So it is observed that whatever hints the person used to include the information, the same would likewise facilitates its retrieval. So let's move on to recognition. It involves providing the learners with stimuli as choices to make decision or judgment. So the learners relying on their stimuli to make their judgments or decisions. So, let's move on to forgetting. Forgetting is the loss of information either in the sensory memory or long-term memory. Let's move on to interference. Is the process that occurs when remembering certain information hampered by the presence of other information. So because of the other information, the certain information is blocked or hampered. The sensory memory, there are other stimuli that bombard the person. As one stimulus is just a focus at a time, others are forgotten. In the short-term memory, as rehearsal and maintenance activities are made, incoming new information interferes, the same phenomenon happen in long-term memory. New information interferences with recalling the previous information. It is called retroactive inferences. If the old information interferes with recalling the new information, it is referred to a proactive interference. Time decay is another factor for the loss of stored information from long-term memory. Unused information decays and is forgotten. However, some theories argue that stored information in the long-term memory is never lost. So, let's proceed to the teaching implication of the IPT. Number 1. Make sure you have the students' attention. Develop a signal that tells students to stop what they are doing and focus on you. Make sure that students respond to the signal. Practice the signal. Number 2. Move around the room. Use gestures and avoid speaking in a monotone. Number 3 begins a lesson by asking a question that stimulates interest in the topic. So before you start your discussion or your lesson, you will ask first your students if they have an idea about that topic. Number 4. Regain the attention of individual students by walking closer to them, using their names, or asking them a question. So when you are discussing your topic and then your students are not listening to you, call their names and ask them questions. Number 5, help students to separate essential from non-essential details and focus on the most important information. Summarize instructional objectives to indicate what students should be learning. Relate the material you are presenting to the objectives as you teach. Number 6. When you make an important point, pause, repeat, ask a students to paraphrase, note the information on the board in colored chalk, or tell students to highlight the point in their notes or readings. The use of mnemonic devices could assist learners' retention of the information learned. So, tell your students to highlight the important details or important words or important phrase. Number 7. Help students to make connections between new information and what they already know. Review prerequisites to help students bring to mind the information they will need to understand new materials. So, as a teacher, we must help our students to connect their prior knowledge to the new information. Number 8. Provide for repetition and review of information. Using graphic organizers for rehearsals can help. So, as a future teacher, before we start our new topic or new discussion, we will first review the previous lesson. Number 9. Present material in a clear and organized way. Make the purpose of the lesson very clear. Advanced organizers can help. So when we are presenting our discussion or our visual aids, it must be clear and organized for them to understand the topic or the discussion. Number 10, focused on meaning, not on memorization. For instance, in teaching new words, help students to associate the new word to a related word they already understand. So as a teacher, we must help our students understand the meaning of that word, and it's not all about memorization.